What do Jeffrey Epstein, an anonymous email, dead bodies, and a ranch named Zorro in New Mexico all have in common with each other? We're going to find out tonight here on Let's Talk Live. I'll see you back here in 60 seconds. Everybody, welcome back into Let's Talk Live. We've had some action over the last few days at the former New Mexico ranch named Zorro of Jeffrey Epstein. And it says here, investigators probing whether Epstein had dead bodies buried there. This all gets triggered back in about 2019 with a gentleman named Eddy Aragon. He received anonymous email alleging that there were two dead bodies of foreign girls that were buried on the property in this 33,000 square foot property. There's been a lot of tales and stories from that property, and a lot of information has come out in the Epstein files about this property as well. I mean, I did a basic search tonight in the DOJ files, and there was well over 2,200 mentions of Zorro Ranch in the Epstein files. But state investigators have been out there in the last couple of days investigating and looking on this into this ranch, and we're going to get into a lot of this tonight. But I want to welcome everybody in, and thanks for checking my stream out tonight. So it says Jeffrey Epstein Zorro Ranch, investigators probing whether Epstein had dead bodies buried there. This is all from TMZ. So Jeffrey Epstein, once notorious Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, is now crawling with investigators, and I'll have some updates on that investigation as well. And TMZ has learned the authorities are trying to see if there's any substance to rumors about the dead bodies that were buried on the property. Sources familiar with the situation tell us that a New Mexico Department of Justice, working in coordination with ranch owner, I think it's Don Huffins, I might say that wrong, right or wrong, a Dallas-based real estate mogul who is currently running for Texas comptroller. I don't even know why you would even want to buy this ranch, knowing all of the things that have probably taken place there, knowing all just the bad, evil energy in and around that place. It's a pretty creepy place. We'll get some photos of it here in a second, but I mean, it's a pretty creepy place overall. And it's like, there's like a dirt pit there. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you want to start in the dirt pit. Maybe that's probably a good place to start this investigation. But it goes on to say, and you can see that big dirt pile up here. I'm like, yeah, you probably want to be searching there first. Huffins and the family purchased the property in 2023, and it remained, and they renamed it Rancho del San Rafael in honor of a patron saint of healing, promising to turn the land into a Christian retreat. Yikes. Our sources say the search by investigators at the ranch were several weeks into the making, and the owners are very happy that the search is taking place, having pledged their full cooperation. Yeah, I'm sure they are. When the feds and the FBI show up on scene, it's best to cooperate at that point. But it goes on to say, we're told that it's expected that investigators will share the findings with the public if they do uncover anything. Yeah, sure you will. Just like all the unredacted and all the names that we were supposed to hear in the Epstein files, right? We're told that expected that the investigators will share their findings with the public if they do uncover anything. Sources note that primary focus of the probe is to determine whether any dead bodies are found on the land. It says New Mexico investigators began zeroing in on the ranch after the latest stretch of Epstein files were released on January 30th, containing substantiated anonymous tips. I do not know for the life of me why more people are not talking about the Epstein files. This thing came in with a blast back on January 30th. People were interested, and it just seemed it all went away. But I'm not gonna let it go here. I'm gonna continue to talk about it here on Let's Talk Live, and expose all the hidden truths inside these files, and all kind of like the little sub stories that are in there. I'm actually working on something now as to what happened on the night that Jeffrey Epstein was found unalived. Yeah, so we'll get more into that at a later live, or I might actually do a video on that as well too. And I've been working on a presentation for that. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, this is probably one of the wildest crimes that have involved more powerful people that we've ever seen in our entire lives. I mean, CEOs, government officials, and it just seems like the only people that are being held accountable is people overseas. We haven't seen any U.S. arrests. I mean, it's been well more over than 30 days right now since those files have been released, and we haven't seen shit. We have what did we see? We saw a couple of depositions from the Clinton, and they, in my opinion, and they lied their way through that. But what's going to really happen? So what are we going to do? We're just going to depose people and then just move on? Because, yeah, we didn't get them to admit to anything. So we just move on now. Personally, what I think is there's so many fucking people that are involved in this, and there's so many people that are entrenched in our government and high-powered CEOs and Fortune 500 companies that I think that literally all these people were arrested all at once. Our ecosystem, as far as the world, would most likely collapse. I mean, it would most likely collapse. That's how many people are mentioned in this, involved in this. And, the way that I've always said this as well, too. I don't care if you're a government official. I don't care if you're a CEO. I don't care if you're a Fortune 500 company. If your name is implicated in the Epstein files and there are strong allegations that you were involved in any criminal activity, you need to be investigated and you need to be brought up on charges and go through the legal process. I don't care. I just don't care. There is no excuse, and there is nowhere and no place in our world for devils that take over and traffic young women and rape young women and molest young women and pass young women off to other larger benefactors. There is no excuse for that in our world. People like that need to go away forever in whatever way that you think that it should be handled. And that's my take on that. So Epstein owned the ranch from 1993 until his death in 2000. His death. Sure. Yeah, it was. It wasn't an unaliving. I can tell you that. In 2000, and there's a lot of information that's coming about that lately. But until his death in 2019, while the federal detention awaiting trial for sex trafficking charges, and I have the full file on that. And like I said, I've been putting together a presentation, and there's a lot of weird things that don't line up in that investigation. And I'm looking forward to doing that here on the channel. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the breakout story. They've been there over the last couple of days. I also want to do this too. Let's get into a couple of videos here. And what I do want to do is play an interview with Eddy Aragon. He was the one that received the anonymous email back in 2019. And I believe at the time he was an assistant for a state rep. And he now is a local AM radio host. And he's talked about this on his show. And I have an interview here that he did a couple of days ago that explains more of this in detail. And I'm hoping that 2019 email, sparked all this up with, just even with the release of the recent Epstein files back on January 30th. But let's do this. So just the day before, there were protesters that were outside demanding that authorities get involved and investigate the ranch.
Good evening. Outside of the gates of Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Zorro Ranch near Stanley, New Mexico, hundreds of protesters gathered together demanding justice. News 13's Bella Olage reports.
I'm on this bus today in solidarity with women all over the world.
Diane McCash joined hundreds of supporters this National Women's Day in the heart of Albuquerque before cars lined up for miles to make the journey to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Zorro Ranch, just south of Santa Fe.
Because we are here to say our voices will be heard and we will be heard.
The ranch has been at the center of controversy, with many claiming Epstein sexually abused and trafficked underage girls and women there.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
The family of one of Epstein's most prominent accusers, Virginia Giuffre, said their sister had faced abuse inside the
God bless her, right? God bless Virginia Giuffre. It's really weird, too. I mean, you got to look at this, everything that we've been covering here, obviously, about Nancy Guthrie. And we know that Savannah Guthrie had interviewed Virginia Giuffre quite a few times. And Savannah Guthrie was mentioned in the Epstein files. Look, a lot of people have thrown that angle out there. Is this a result of, Savannah knowing too much? And this is supposed to quiet her down? That's why Nancy Guthrie was kidnapped or abducted. I've heard a lot of conversation about that as well, too. All right, let's keep playing
of the
here.
ranch and demanded accountability through the release of all the Epstein files.
But right here, hidden in plain sight, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell built something very different, a house of horrors. We're here to say that money and power do not buy you a different set of laws.
In February, New Mexico lawmakers created the Epstein Truth Commission, which aims to determine whether state officials appropriately investigated allegations of sexual abuse and trafficking at the ranch. Shortly after the commission was launched, the state's attorney general reopened a criminal investigation into the accusation.
It's a freaking compound. That thing is massive. And, there's been a lot of rumors and speculation, and even some of the victims have come out that, this was the baby making ranch. This is where they were, going to spawn, many babies from these women that were taken and trafficked. I mean, it's very disgusting stuff. It's very, very disturbing stuff. And we've heard a lot about Zorro Ranch in the media since these Epstein files have dropped. I can't get over the fact that more people are not outraged by this. The names that have been listed, the people that have been listed, and then what do? We get them in, the few people that have been questioned so far, they just, I don't remember any of that. I was only around Jeffrey Epstein just a handful of times. Dude, you flew on his plane, 20 something plus times, and you're going to tell me that you don't remember anything that happened? You don't remember any of the conversations that you had? You weren't that close to him? I don't believe this shit for a minute. I don't believe it. I don't believe this shit for a minute. All these people are lying.
Exactly. Which have been closed since 2019.
And the fact that it's so isolated, it just makes me feel fearful, for the women that came here under false pretenses. And I'm just here in support of them and believing them.
Amanda Cisco joined several others in rebuilding a memorial outside of Zorro Ranch that organizers say was removed in the last week. Placing flowers at the site, Cisco says she wanted to commemorate the loss of the victim's freedom and childhood.
It feels like the death of innocence.
Outside of Stanley, Bella Olage, KRQE, News 13.
Let's see. Susan's mom said, Brian, do you think there will be any charges in connection? I hope so. I've been waiting since this, 3.5 million files that have been dropped back on January 3rd. Where are the charges? That's right. What is the one headline that's dominating everything right now? You're all smart. Put it in the chat. What is the one headline that is dominating everything right now? What was the one headline that was and believe me, I've followed the case. Give me the two headlines that have dominated over the last 30 days. What have you heard? The minute that the Epstein files dropped, ironically, the next day, what is the biggest headline in the news? And I covered it. I covered it here. I've been covering it on my channel. Give me the two. Okay, there's one of them. There they are. There they are. You haven't heard anything about the Epstein files. I see a lot of it on X, but I ain't seeing people talking about it on YouTube. I'm going to talk about it. There are a lot of things to talk about and break down in these files. And I'm so glad that I got the original data dump, because a lot of the files were taken out and covered up. I got them right away. I went in when they were downloadable. I started grabbing them. I grabbed everything and just put them away for safekeeping. I have them, and I can just methodically go through them and go through all these documents. And believe me, there's a lot of information in there that you're all going to want to see once we start going through all this. Okay, so let's do this. I want to go up and we had a state rep. Let's see. State rep. Melanie Stansberry was out there the other day giving updates. Let's just play that video really quick. And then I want to eventually get to this Eddy Aragon interview, because it's really good and gives kind of his take of what happened back in 2019 when he received that that anonymous email that told them about the dead bodies that were supposedly buried on this ranch. Let's
Okay. Well, I am coming to you from New Mexico with a breaking update in the Epstein investigation. And that is today, New Mexico's Department of Justice has begun its on-site investigation of Zorro Ranch. This investigation is crucial as a part of our larger investigation into the crimes that happened by Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and his associates here in New Mexico, as part of New Mexico's investigation through our state Department of Justice and our newly passed bipartisan Truth Commission. Now, one of the things that's important to know is that New Mexico's Zorro Ranch is a place where multiple crimes were reported both to federal authorities as well as state and local authorities. In fact, there are records dating back to the mid-1990s of abuse happening at the ranch, including a report to the FBI in 1996 by a survivor and multiple other reports over the years. And one of the significant and important pieces of this case is to understand why justice was never pursued at the state, local, or federal level. So this investigation is a crucial piece of trying to understand what happened at the ranch, to look for potential crimes that may have occurred on the ranch property, especially because after Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019 and other properties were searched, Zorro Ranch was never properly searched. And because it is a crucial piece in getting to the bottom of truth and accountability here in our state, to hold those who are still able to be held accountable to the law, as well as seeking justice and healing for survivors here in our state. So we are so grateful for the work that the New Mexico Department of Justice is doing. We are so grateful for our state legislative leaders like State House Representative Andrea Romero and State House Representative Mariana Anaya, who are leading on our Truth Commission. And we are so grateful to all of the survivors and our community who has shown up, especially over the last several weeks, to show support for survivors. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone, all of the hundreds of New Mexicans who showed up yesterday to show their support for the survivors, to march and to stand in solidarity at Zorro Ranch yesterday. I had the opportunity to meet with survivors afterwards, and I want to share with you that what they shared with us is that they felt like New Mexico was home and had welcomed them. So thank you to all of our New Mexicans out there who are leading the way, who are leading with your hearts, and who are seeking truth, justice, and accountability, because that is what this case is all about. Well, That's great. That's such a great video. Really great video. All right, so let's do this. Let's get into this interview that kind of sparked this anonymous email back in 2019. And the gentleman is Eddy Aragon. I'm just reading a little bit here. This is my notes. Eddy Aragon received an anonymous email alleging the bodies of 2 foreign girls were buried near Epstein's property. Both, it says, quote, both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex. An anonymous email said the writer claimed to be a former staff member at the ranch. Aragon forwarded the email, obviously, to the FBI, and the email has been amongst the other documents released in the Epstein Files.
So let's get into this interview. I was listening to it this morning, and I didn't get to complete it, but I really want to listen to this, and I'm glad that you all could be here. This is very important stuff. I mean, these people need to be held accountable. The names that are in those files, the people that are had connections to Jeffrey Epstein, if they were involved in any part of any of this criminal activity, they need to be held accountable. It's time for our government, our Congress, to get tough on this. I don't want softball depositions. Nancy Mace has been doing an amazing job. I don't want to see softball. I just don't want to see it. People need to be held accountable in this. And if this becomes a pass and this gets dropped, this will be one of the biggest tragedies that have ever happened in our society. There is so much going on in this, in so many connections to that guy, and so many connections to people in Hollywood, throughout our government, and the massive Fortune 500 companies that run our world. And we're not holding anybody accountable. Why? I want answers why. All right, let's play this interview here.
Of Around the Roundhouse, a podcast featuring the policies, politics, and personalities of the land of enchantment. My name is Daniel Chacon, and I'm the State House reporter for the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our guest this week is Eddy Aragon, a well-known radio personality who hosts an afternoon talk program called The Rock of Talk. Mr. Aragon has been investigating the Jeffrey Epstein case in New Mexico for years, and in 2019 received an anonymous email alleging 2 girls were buried in the hills outside of Epstein's Zorro Ranch, south of Santa Fe. The email, which Mr. Aragon forwarded to the FBI, contained disturbing allegations that the girls died by strangulation during rough fetish sex. The email was among millions of documents in the Epstein Files that the U.S. Department of Justice released last month, generating widespread attention, not just in New Mexico, but abroad. Mr. Aragon, thank you for joining us today. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Mr. Aragon, as I mentioned, you've kind of been at the forefront of the Jeffrey Epstein case in New Mexico, talking about it and investigating it kind of long before it became popular to do so. May I ask what prompted your interest or involvement in the case?
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a great question. That's really like the inception of all this. And back in 2019, when all this happened, July 7th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, brought in, and then, of course, New Mexico is a part of that. And by virtue of the fact that he owns a property on the other side of the mountain, about 40 miles removed from Albuquerque. And, you know, my station, the radio station coverage, covers a long stretch of all that, all the way out to Clients Corners, you know, out past Grants, you know, well past Socorro, and then beyond Santa Fe, up into Espanola is where the radio coverage is. And so it's really not my investigation. I think it's more on behalf of the public's curiosity. We're talking about this today, 7 years after the fact. This is something that people want to know about. And so when you have a call-in show, and then I don't have call screeners and people pick up the phone and call in, people were bringing in more and more information. So it's not my curiosity, it's the public's curiosity. They were driving this. This isn't something of my own making. It's not like all of a sudden I discovered Jeffrey Epstein, I have something. This has more to do with the public, you know, having a muzzle.
I mean, can you imagine that? You have this massive ranch out there. There's all these people that are probably seeing and hearing things in town, all the things that they probably have been talking about, you know, all the little towny, you know, rumors, like, did you hear this? Did you see that? I mean, I'm sure a lot of that was going on in town, and maybe people were just afraid to talk about it, or they just wanted to be given the chance to talk about it, the opportunity to talk about it. And this is really fascinating that this was all fueled by the public. You know, it's the public interest to you know, have these conversations. And I'm sure they had and saw a lot of things that people are talking about now, you know, that, like I said, they probably were afraid to talk about, or maybe people just wouldn't listen back then. Oh, Jeffrey, he's a good guy. What are you talking about? You know, he's just the guy that lives up on that big ranch. You know, they probably were afraid to talk about it, or just ignored it, you know.
Along themselves, not having an outlet to go to do that. And there you go. That's the start of all this. You know, the bigger part of that, of course, is the fact that there was just a lack of coverage on behalf of the local television stations. They didn't cover it. Local radio stations, they didn't cover it. You know, newspapers, aside from the great job that you guys have been doing over at the Santa Fe New Mexican, really didn't cover it. You know, didn't do any in-depth. We're a non-disclosure real estate. And then, of course, we have big, powerful politicians who sort of run the roost. And so my little radio station there on 1600 AM provided an ample and an opportune, moment. And
yeah, you see that? They said that even like state reps, the government wasn't talking about any of this. They didn't want to go near it. There were, powerful people that were in and around. They didn't want to go near it. It's crazy, and it's fear or payoffs. Maybe they were involved in shit. Who knows?
Segue for many of these people to come forward and start speaking about this.
Sort of on that topic, it seems as though the Epstein case, at least in New Mexico, as we just discussed, hasn't gotten as much media attention, hasn't gotten as much attention as some of the other properties that Epstein owned. And I'm curious why you think that is.
Well, you just have to look at the rulership of a single party with particular politicians over a longer period of time. There's no science to that. It just is the way it is. And when you have that type of domination and Jeffrey Epstein being involved pretty heavily with the Democratic Party, that's kind of what happened. When Donald Trump was a member of the Democratic Party, was a famous anti-Busher, if you will, sort of a guy that was against WMDs and all this other stuff. From 2001 through 2009, he was a big Democrat during that time. So it's sort of like the formula for how things work in the state of New Mexico. I was the youngest member of the state central committee for the Democratic Party back in 1993. I know how the Democratic Party works. My cousin is Raymond Sanchez, who's a former Speaker of the House. And then, of course, I have another cousin who's now in the Senate now, who's in. So, it's a very insulated world. And I think it's time that we sort of break that out so we can get rid of the old boys network and bring the new people into the state of New Mexico and just realize it's not run by just the same gang or group of people. You can go back and look at Bill Richardson back in 1978, 1980, son of a banker, brought in, basically created a new congressional district in 1980. The Sovereign Wealth Fund was established in 68. Bruce King, of course, sold the property to Jeffrey Epstein, as you know, and Bruce King was a big Democrat. And all things considered, truth be known, like I've known these people and liked these people for a very long time. When I went to Boys Nation, Boys State, Boys Nation, I actually went to Boys Nation, and I was very much a Democrat. I worked for Bingaman up in DC back in 1995. I know the players, I know how it works. So, it's kind of surreal to, and I hate using that word, it's overused, but it's kind of surreal to talk about like my experiences in DC. And then at the very same time, Jeffrey Epstein was here already. So, the question becomes, Jeffrey Epstein, did he choose New Mexico or did New Mexico choose Jeffrey Epstein? And really the truth is way more interesting than even that answer. So, I plan on talking about that at length. It's really sort of like what eats at the core of New Mexico. I think, we're the 5th largest state in terms of landmass. We're a huge state. You and I love being here. We have, amazing weather. Santa Fe is the greatest place on earth. It really is. I love it. I just can't tell you how much I like it. And then you think about everything from Operation Paperclip, which most people don't even talk about or think about. Think about Oppenheimer, just won Best Picture, a couple years ago. I'm like, all this stuff is taking place right here, man. And the biggest story with the most undercover thread that's out there is the Jeffrey Epstein story. And there's so many layers. I mean, Daniel, I don't even know if there's enough time in your and my lifetime to cover everything and to get to the level of sophistication. It really takes.
Again, and I have to just compliment another amazing interview. And why do I always say what makes amazing interviews? What is the number one thing that makes an amazing interview? I talk about this. You guys can tell me in the chat. What is the number one amazing thing that is about a good host? What do they do? What do they do? What do they do?
A high level of lateral thinking and understanding. And it's not just about culture, and it's not just about the things that have taken place here. It's the things that are going to continue to take place unless you and I and the media, the fourth estate, shines light on exactly what that is. So, the people need to speak up, and they need to speak out, and they need to understand what's happening right in their very backyard. I mean, to really process and contemplate the fact that there may have been things taking place on the other side of that mountain. I mean, all I have to do is tell people to do a couple of key search words on the Department of Justice website. You and I agree, I think, on the fact that all files should be released. Like yes. we shouldn't have any redactions other than the victims themselves, and then get all X amount of files out there so that we know that's really what's going on. So I like the sort of group sourcing that's going on, or the group thinking that's going on, and that everybody's becoming a citizen journalist. I think you and I shun that term. It makes me angry to be called a citizen journalist. I hold an FCC license. You're a journalist of note for a big paper, and a paper of note here in New Mexico, and I think that's important. But we've got citizen journalists who are helping sort of fill those gaps, and that's what needs to happen. And my biggest concern, of course, is going to be on behalf of the victims themselves. The victim
It's what I love about, quote unquote citizen journalists. It's what I always love about my YouTube channel. It's what I love about doing this is that I can get on here and speak my mind and report news and give you my point of view without a filter. I don't have a major corporation breathing down my neck saying, you know what, we're probably not going to touch this story because it's too controversial. I don't give a shit. I'm going to talk about the controversial things here on the channel. I'm going to expose those things because if no one's going to talk about it, someone has to. Someone has to continue to talk about this stuff. And this is this is just super important to me. Just the whole concept of everything that went on here, for years and was covered up, that people knew about this. And now is the time, now is the time. The documents are there. And I do agree. All of it needs to be released, minus the victims' names. And if the victims want to come forward and share their stories, please do. Please do. If there's anything that you need to do, if you can help testify, if you can help, continue to do depositions, please do, because this is the opportunity now to put a lot of these people on blast and put them behind bars. All right, here we go.
Haven't been spoken for, and whether they're alive, dare I say, whether they're dead, and we'll get to, I guess, my email here shortly, and how I handle that. That is something that is troubling. I mean, can you imagine getting an email like that? What do you do with it? I'm a journalist. I went straight to the FBI with that. And
Mr. Aragon, for folks who may not be familiar with the contents of the email, what did it say?
There's 7 lines. They all had a piece of media that was sourced in there. I did not receive the media. It asked for me to go ahead and give them 1 Bitcoin. At that time, the value of that was $6,500.
Whoa!
$7,000.
Whoa! Wow! What? Wait a minute. Now, I think this has been flushed out, but let me just pull this up real quick. Where have we heard Bitcoin before? Am I going deep into the conspiracy theory here? Where have we heard Bitcoin before? Right? Now, again, my opinion here, the Bitcoin thing is probably some people trying to get some money, but hey, you never know. You never know. You never know. Let's just back up. I want to hear that again. Let's back up and hear that again real quick. Let's back up. Here we go. What was the email, sir?
Themselves. The victims haven't been spoken for. And whether they're alive, dare I say, whether they're dead, and we'll get to, I guess, my email here shortly, and how I handle that. That is something that is troubling. I mean, can you imagine getting an email like that? What do you do with it? I'm a journalist. I went straight to the FBI with that. And
Mr. Aragon, for folks who may not be familiar with the contents of the email, what did it say?
There's 7 lines. They all had a piece of media that was sourced in there. I did not receive the media. It asked for me to go ahead and give them 1 Bitcoin. At that time, the value of that was $6,500, $7,000. My response to that was to give it directly to the FBI because I didn't know what to do with that. But it described things that were illegal: underage, child pornography, rape, suicide, and then strangulation and death of 2 individuals at Zorro Ranch, which has yet to this day, on this day here in March, we have yet to uncover.
And Mr. Aragon, when you received the email, did you think it was legitimate, or did you think perhaps someone was playing a trick on you?
Yeah, that's a question I get asked often. Someone was trying to blackmail me because I was covering this, or because the public was interested in this. It's a double-edged sword. It could have gone either way. That's why you turn that kind of information over to the FBI. If someone's trying to extort me, that's one crime. If someone's in possession of child pornography, that's another crime. It's not for me to sort of discern what that is. I just know that I had it and I had to turn it over. So, you become very astute about the types of informations and leads that you receive from the public. And I have to do the same thing in my background as well. And I have a wide open phone line where people constantly call or text or send me information. It's annoying, but when you get something of that nature, you go and you contact the FBI, you sit in there, you give your phone number, social security number, all that information, and say, hey, you know what? Here you go. What can you do with this?
And Mr. Aragon, the sender claimed to be a former Zorro Ranch employee, correct? And also claimed to have taken videos from Epstein's home, including one depicting sex with minors. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So once you handed over, and how soon did you contact the FBI, and kind of walk us through that process of what happened next?
I don't know how soon, based upon the receipt and me sending. So the FBI had to ask me a second time. So I must have contacted the FBI almost immediately, because they were asking for the information from me. So the agent in the Albuquerque office actually came back to me a second time to ask me for the information. So I must have contacted him immediately, and I was still sort of leery about whether or not I should, forward the information, or if this was even worth pursuing, one or the other. It's hard for me to kind of think back to that time in particular. I have the receipts, and that's the information. So, the best I can do is, surmise that I know that I did the right thing, but I don't know how quickly.
Okay. And was there, you mentioned that you were contacted again by the FBI, but was there ever any follow-up? Did they ever say, we checked it out, this is what we were able to uncover? Did you ever receive any information or any follow-up from the FBI?
No, I actually contacted them again. I attempted to email them again, or the source that sent it to me. I know that the Bitcoin has been verified for a fact. And then I tried to contact the agent on that, in addition to the person who sent me. The email bounced back. You get that, no email no longer exists. It was a Proton Mail email address. And then I know that the Bitcoin has been verified by the FBI. And then I think as recently as, I want to say February 22nd, I texted an FBI agent directly who I had her cell phone number. I sent her information, and I told her who I thought that it was, and I received no information back.
And Mr. Aragon, may I ask how you...
And this is 4 days ago, and then here we are. Now they're back out at the ranch investigating. This interview was 4 days ago, and now all of a sudden, authorities were out there yesterday. I think there was some activity there today again this morning as well, too, out on the ranch investigating.
I think you know who the sender was.
That's a good question. So that's the most important question, right? So, I mean, the answer to that question actually gives you the best insight as to the inner workings of Jeffrey Epstein and the structure, and who had access to what house and what part of the property, and what was done, and how long were people employed, et cetera, et cetera. Not only do I know pretty much every person that has been employed over there, but I know how long they've been employed. I know the relationships to each other. Like, this is important knowledge. The most important piece of all of this is who knows who and what. No agency that's currently investigating Zorro Ranch is going to get any of this information. Remember, all of this stuff was done under the cover of things that were happening then and now, and there was no investigation to Zorro Ranch. Now that there's an investigation to Zorro Ranch, many of these people who worked at Zorro Ranch, were involved in Zorro Ranch, were contractors at Zorro Ranch, they all have legal. They all have people who they're going to be working with, and they're going to stall out those subpoenas, and they're going to stall out everything. So that's a very important component of all of this. So where was I?
We saw a lot in the Enrique Delgado Garcia case, and I've covered that here on my channel, and it's why it took so long to get to the determination, because when you're involved in something like that, maybe if you've seen it or you were there, you were involved in it, what does everybody do? They initially get a lawyer. And because that happened at the police academy, and you had, potential state troopers or state troopers involved in this, they get their union rep. And then what does that do? When a special investigator comes in, or investigative team comes in, it slows down the process to get to the end point, to get to a conclusion, because everybody starts to throw their lawyer up, their representative up, whatever it may be, and it slows down the investigation. And it took a lot of people. There was a lot of people that were interviewed. Excuse me. There were a lot of people interviewed in that case. A lot of people in that academy that were interviewed. All right, back here to this fantastic interview.
To get this information, well, when it's inbound, people come to me, and then they tell you things because they think that there's something that's going to happen. Justice is going to be done. We're going to see Zorro Ranch. Things are going to happen. There's going to be perp walks of the people who are alive. Now they're no longer alive. Of the people, they want to hold them accountable. I mean, I will tell you on the face of this, and I think everybody will agree. The people who worked over at the ranch had not just a negative opinion, but a very empowered, negative, horrible opinion of Governor Bill Richardson. And that's where they all kind of go to. They have an axe to grind with him. He wasn't there at the ranch all the time. He frequented the ranch. I mean, he was there more than I could even, connect the dots for them to be there. Everyone has a story about Bill Richardson, how long he was there, what he was doing at the ranch. For him to say, back when he was alive, that it was one time back in 2012. No.
Real quick, I was asked, LTL, do you have a private line? You can email me right here at letstalklivepodcast@gmail.com. Anytime. You can send over information, tips, questions, whatever it may be. But yeah, Vanessa, if you want to reach out, LTL, she asked if you have a private line, and you can reach me there. letstalklivepodcast@gmail.com. Okay, let's keep playing through this.
Dude, you were there all the time. I've driven the path from the legislature in the roundhouse directly to, Zorro Ranch, 37 minutes. It's a quick jaunt down the road.
And Mr. Aragon, is that information that you obtained from the folks that used to work at the ranch?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they are very highly opinionated about him in particular. So Prince Andrew there, as I have noted, was there from 2003, from October 20th through October 22nd. Well documented. They were friends. You've seen what's happened with Prince Andrew. The deal that was put together for Virgin Galactic, being Prince Andrew being the primary trade representative. Then you look at the timelines and everything. That is in fact put together by Jeffrey Epstein, Richard Branson. I mean, there's a picture with Richard Branson, Jeffrey Epstein, and the basically the guy who made Segway, with them documenting how many appointments or securities that they're going to go ahead and bring into their company that they created with Virgin Galactic that was going to send people out to space.
Crazy,
there's
man.
the number right there. It's fantastic. To look at that kind of stuff is just kind of crazy. And to realize that people were putting down $250,000, $50,000 deposit, and then, we're on the hook for another $200,000 for them to go to space. And we've gone to space like 4 times with Virgin Galactic. I mean, Richard Branson, Bill Clinton, Bill Richardson, Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. I mean, they're all in the same room several times.
Exactly.
And Mr. Aragon, in speaking with the folks that used to work there, did any of
But
them
apparently
report-
not to Bill Clinton. Remember, he didn't remember. He didn't remember the interactions. He only had very limited interactions with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, he only fucking flew on his plane like 20 plus times on Lolita Express. But I only used that when I was touring and doing things for the Clinton Foundation. Even worse, motherfucker. Even worse.
Seen anything that was involved trafficking of minors, anything that they've relayed to you that would rise to a criminal level?
Yeah, so that's such a broad question. There's no way for me to kind of noodle into all the details and the various times these people have made commitments to me about seeing younger. There's no way for someone to know whether or not someone is underage or 18 or 16. But yeah, I mean, it was very apparent to all of them that there was many very young, attractive women who were there at the ranch.
Okay. Mr. Aragon, as you know, the New Mexico Department of Justice has reopened its criminal investigation into Zorro Ranch. Has the Office of Attorney General Raul Torres reached out to you? I mean, given you have
reached out to them. I actually reached out to the commission. I saw Andrea Romero, out in DC, and so I figured she was busy. So I waited for her to get back, and then I reached out to her, and she put me in touch. And I finally, literally today, yesterday was the first day, and they're like, "Thanks for reaching out." I'm like, "Hello. You guys have my email that you used to open this up commission, and you guys haven't contacted me yet." So, you got to contact me, but I ended up contacting them, and they were appreciative. I think we're all trying to get to the bottom of this, and I'm glad to finally have heard back from them. So they returned the call, and I hope to, be cooperative and helpful and make sure that we do this on behalf of the victims.
And for folks who may not know about the commission, it's a truth commission that was established during the 30-day session to investigate allegations of crimes at the ranch. It is it's a bipartisan panel of lawmakers. And I was going to ask you what advice you would give the commission and what role, if any, you would like to play in that process.
So yeah, if you're asking me for the advice that I'm giving the commission, is they need to talk to me as soon as possible. They need to get me on board with their commission. I'm under no obligation as a member of the media to respond to anything beyond the subpoenas that are beyond the FBI information that I've already surrendered to them. I will be happy to give them their unredacted files, but I have no partisan commitment to this at all. This is not interested. I don't care about Republican or Democrat. I don't care where it goes, what it does, who it hurts, who it doesn't hurt. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. There's a cover up, no doubt about it. Richardson was live back in 2019. I've seen all the emails. I asked under why the land commissioner didn't seize the land she should have. Stephanie Garcia Richards, Hector Balderas certainly had the power within his office to go ahead and do that. Get me involved and, direct this in a way that's honest and that makes New Mexico look great, that restores our reputation, that makes sure that we don't look like a place where people come to hide out and escape and nobody can find us. I mean, it's like we ran this giant witness protection plan for Jeffrey Epstein. And how did he get here? How did it start? Why did he buy this property? Was the property like, I've got so many things for them, and I'm the best person to go through, not a Democrat, not a Republican. I think yourself.
Yeah, he's just a person in the middle that doesn't give a shit about left or right politics. He's just going to give the information that he has. He's just going to tell it the way it is. And I love the fact that he wants to get involved and do it that way. There's no partisan in this at all. It's just, here it is. This is what I have. These are the straight facts. You do with what it is. And I think because it's a lot of political connections to this, a lot of Democrats or Republicans, they want to see it or fix it one way, and it can't be that way. It just needs to be completely transparent, absolutely completely transparent at this point. And again, I don't give a shit either. Whoever's responsible and has any criminality involvement in any of this needs to be held accountable. That's just the bottom line. It's the bottom line in all of this.
You and I think Clara Bates, who's been doing a fantastic job of writing about this, and you, Daniel Chacon, who's got a commitment to the people of New Mexico. We've got media that's a voice for people, and that's what we're licensed to do. Is we got to go out and do that. So if you were to put me on the commission and get me involved, I only have one commitment to one person, and that's the citizens of the state of New Mexico and the victims of Zorro Ranch. At the end of the day, that's the way that this needs to look. I don't need to take trips to Washington, D.C. I don't need to worry about my old friends who I used to know who are no longer with us. I don't need to worry about my political connections or protect any sort of reputation. We need to get this stain off of our state of New Mexico. I think, with our cooperative efforts in the media and with the public's input, I think we can get to the bottom of this. So if you get a person like me involved, you're going to get no BS, and you're going to get you're going to get to the bottom of this and uncover the truth with no political motivation.
And Mr. Aragon, you really touched on a topic that I wanted to ask you about, and that is, what are some of the big questions that remain unanswered that, I don't know if it's the Truth Commission or investigators, but what are the big questions that remain unanswered in this case?
So back on July 7th, 2020, we, a group of people and myself, I was just listening to a podcast of my radio show back on January 27th. If you search Epstein, Eddy, Aragon, it'll come up. And I talk about how I had already started the citizens grand jury, and we got enough signatures and we entered it into Santa Fe County on July 7th, 2020, which was 5 days after Ghislaine Maxwell was taken in, and 1 year to the day when Jeffrey Epstein was taken in. And we knew that Sean T. Davies and Jane Doe number 9 had stated that they were raped and there was crimes committed on Zorro Ranch. And since we got a citizens grand jury with 200 people, why wasn't that investigated? Then I would go back to why the land wasn't seized back on August 28th. Then I would want to know why Jeffrey Epstein, who gave the order that Jeffrey Epstein did not have to register as a sex offender. And then I think that turns into, more or less, how did Jeffrey Epstein get here? Why did we allow him to be here and continue to operate? And why did he continue to help these politicians get elected with his very large donations? And then, the victims themselves, who I'm already in contact with, it's really their testimony. That's a separate angle. The victim's testimony is going to be separate from the cover up and everything that everybody knew kind of going on. And then, of course, you have the laws. I think, our governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, she ain't going to stand for that. I can tell you right now, like, if we can, direct her on the laws that we have that are holes that allow child predators and various other pedophiles to continue to operate and be here, not to mention our Lex. And I don't think her and I are in the same, place with immigration standards, but, there's 3 places for child trafficking in the country that are huge: Florida, Ohio, and of course, New Mexico. And New Mexico is a huge bastion for child trafficking. And, I would ask that our governor, especially in these last couple of years of her term, part of her legacy would be to absolutely do everything to get rid of child trafficking. We have the West Mesa murders, of course, and then, you see things that are like unresolved. The murder of a 10-year-old child in a bathtub chopped up on the West Side back in 2016. I mean, it's just unbelievably disgusting things. And these are threads that I think that, we can make New Mexico more hospitable for the future. And I want to restore the reputation of New Mexico. In a lot of ways, we're the oldest state. We're the best state. We have the best weather. We have all these great things going for us. But when you hear about Epstein or you hear about crime being, taking us to 50th, like, it doesn't become a very attractive place. It's hard to get around to tell the Chamber of Commerce, you got to recruit more companies to come here or have more people come here when we have, stains like this, on our legacy.
You can tell this guy definitely loves his state. I would hate to have all that stain on my state. This is the big hovering thing. It might not be so talked about in and around your state, but I'm sure this is a big topic of conversation in New Mexico. It had a lot of impact there. And now it just, again, it's like these files get released 30 days ago, this, huge amount of files, and it now just seemingly is getting swept under the rug again. Why people are not curious about this or interested in it, it's beyond me. It's very important in our society to get this all figured out. Who's going to be ultimately held responsible in all of this? This can't be a pass. All right, here we go.
Do you have confidence that the Truth Commission will uncover the truth?
No. If they involve me, yes. But if they don't, then I don't think so. And I think that's our job as the fourth estate to, hold their feet to the fire. The Truth Commission needs to be a truth commission, not a political commission, not a bury the truth commission. It needs to be something that is absolutely committed to the bottom line. And were these people committed to their political affiliations, or were they committed to, finding justice? In my opinion, given everything I've seen out of the DOJ and everything that's there, right now, I don't believe that they were committed to justice. I believe that they were committed to their political livelihoods. Many of these people had political pursuits back in 2019. They thought they were going somewhere. They thought they were going to be governor, lieutenant governor, some other, position. And they were thinking more about that than they were thinking about the victims of Zorro Ranch.
Mr. Aragon, you're going to have to forgive me, but if we can go back to a question that I had asked earlier, because I'm not 100% sure that I understood that correctly, and that is, how do you think that you know who the sender of the anonymous email is?
Because I know who the sender is. I mean, there's only so many people that were allowed onto the house. There's only so many people who had access to the house. And then there's people who had access to the ranch, and then who had access to the rest of the grounds. Like, you have to understand that in a way that, only knowing this stuff for the last 7 years and people telling you things and just putting things together. Like, I know I'm talking a lot here, but, you got to listen twice as much as you speak. And I just look at people talk, and, I've already committed to that. I've already texted the FBI. I've already given them the name. I've told them where to go and why and what to do it. I did that on February 22nd, documented in a text. If they want to investigate that lead, they can. More importantly, because a lot of this evidence that was, there, and I would say, like, the process in which they disposed of the bodies. That in and of itself, what I just said, the process of which they disposed the bodies, like, I just literally dropped a huge amount of information on you by saying that. I think people should explore and look at that thread. And I think people should look at, take a look at the picture from the New York Times with the aerial that was flown over on February 27th, and look at what's happening with the grounds there, and then look at the connections. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't want to say this right now on your podcast and all that, but this is way beyond just burying bodies at Zorro Ranch. This is something far more macabre and strange than you think or have thought of. I'll just say it that way. So, wow.
I wish you would elaborate.
I wish I could. I don't think that's the place for me to do that. I think this has to be sensitive. These are things, if I were to say them, it would make me seem crazy or conspiratorial. And it's not. I mean, it's just research a few words on the DOJ files and you're good to go. The citizen journalists are doing a great job. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of people who are, I'm pretty much banned on every social media there is. But, if you're on, I was at Twitter, I was banned on Twitter, Facebook, all of the social media that's out there. But these people are getting that information out there right now. So
I love the internet sleuth. It's so nice when folks are able to use their skills for the greater good.
Of course.
They're doing a good job. I mean, I think human curiosity is everything. We're sort of up against it where we have AI and we want the answers and we want it to happen to them immediately. And then this is something that AI can't solve. I mean, we're talking about transhumanism. We're talking about, go back to Operation Paperclip. There's so many threads here. Santa Fe is an incredibly interesting place. Los Alamos is an incredibly interesting place. dig beneath the surface, do a couple of queries.
God, man, I'd love to pick this guy's brain for like 3 hours. Maybe I can reach out to him and get him on the show. I'd love to pick his brain. He's got a lot of information. Eddy, where are you, Eddy? Come on the show. Tell us more about the Epstein files. Tell us more about what's going on in New Mexico. Tell us more about what happened at Zorro Ranch. Please, Eddy, come on over here. We want to hear more. It's a fantastic interview. I always say the best interviews is when the host just shuts the fuck up and lets the guests speak. Gail's asking, do you think this ring of sex traffickers may be still happening with someone just taking Epstein's place? Yes. Yes. This is deep-rooted, strong connections that span across the world, and this has not stopped. Obviously, has not stopped. All right, let's go.
Understand who Ghislaine Maxwell was, who her sister is, Christine, what the Santa Fe Institute is, who Robert Maxwell is. Start understanding, Santa Fe is as sophisticated, intricate, and financially, established as a city like New York or London or Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
It has that level of complexity.
I'm gonna reach out.
And what you guys are doing at your paper, it's hard. I mean, you guys have high-level operators who are trying to, establish some, hey, here's what's going on with the homeless. Here's what's going on with the Santa Fe race. Here's
right.
My gosh, they just invented the atom bomb right up the road over here. They brought in a bunch of Nazis during Operation Paperclip. And the reason why the Russians have the nuclear codes and why Robert Maxwell is here is all because of, the Five and Dime store on the plaza here in Santa Fe. It's interesting. We live in an amazing place. I mean, the Rosenberg's house, the spy house, is right down here on, 216 High Street here in Albuquerque. Those are the last executed people, trading secrets against Trotsky came through here. Lenin, they all knew about Santa Fe. So it's big. I mean, this is an international story. I've been in everything from, French and Japanese and Middle Eastern newspapers because this implicates everything. I mean, there are so many players from most powerful people in different countries, all who had interactions directly with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein had no money. Jeffrey Epstein was just an operator. The only thing that he knew is who he had recorded and who he got on his, tapes, that he recorded over at Zorro Ranch or in Paris or New York or Little St. James or Palm Beach. That's what he had. So, for us to have this little sliver of information and for Zorro Ranch to be the only place that wasn't, discovered or went into, that's really interesting. And as I started this little part of this answer to your question, the real thing of note is who was on Jeffrey Epstein's property the day that he committed suicide. That's the beginning of a lot of things. So,
and what's the answer to that question, sir?
I won't give you the answer because I'm going to talk to the Truth Commission and I will continue to talk to all that. That's the most important piece to all of this, in my opinion.
Have you been on the property?
Wow.
Kind of what emotions, if any, do you feel, when you visit the property?
No, I've never been beyond the gate. That's it. I've been to the road. There was a day when it snowed heavily that we were all planning on going onto the property and, going in and taking pictures. But I, to this day, I actually talked to the contractors who were actually on site for the new owner. I know the property manager who's currently on there. So yeah, I mean, I've never been on the property. I have all the floor plans. I have all the pictures on the inside. I have all the resources. So, I might as well have been on the property, but I didn't need to be on the property. And quite honestly, I'm glad I didn't because I'd hate to get all that stuff that was going on there with the child sacrifice and the murders and the cannibalism that was going on there. Oh, did I say too much? I'm sorry. To actually go on the property. So yeah, I'm glad that my soul is clean.
He said, did I say too much? He said, did I say too much? I'm sorry. I mean, come on. He goes, oops. Let's hear that again. He says, oops, did I say too much? Oops.
I might as well have been on the property, but I didn't need to be on the property. And quite honestly, I'm glad I didn't because I'd hate to get all that stuff that was going on there with the child sacrifice and the murders and the cannibalism that was going on there. Oh, did I say too much? I'm sorry. To actually go on the property. So yeah, I'm glad that my soul is clean and I don't need to be a part of all of that.
Right.
You mentioned, for example, child sacrifices and whatnot. And some folks believe those are conspiracy theories. Are they?
No. Look up Jericho Labyrinth. That's all you need to look at. And I'll leave it at that. Again, it's we're getting on the beyond the beyonds. It'll make me seem like crazy. The people I talk to, I sound crazier than people that are probably admitted to the psychiatric services place here in Albuquerque. I look crazy by saying these things. I'm not. And just go into the DOJ, type in things like jerky and type in, various other keywords in there, and you'll find what you need to find. It's all between the lines. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is stupid that we're even having to talk about.
That's what I mean. I downloaded all the files the day they were released because I knew at some point within like a 24 hours, 36 hours, they're all going to get pulled. I got in there and got them right away. I have everything. It's just been taking me a lot to go through it, and I want to go through soon, and I'm going to be going through this soon here on the channel. The unaliving investigation, I've been going through it, and there's a lot of very strange things in those files that don't add up. And we'll be doing that and going through that here on the channel very, very soon. And this is something that I want to start diving back into. I'm very fascinated by it. And the wild things that you find inside these files. It's just to take everything in and be able to spit it all back out to you and present it back to you. It's just been taking me a long time to do it. Because I want to make sure all my information is clear, and I want it to, be clear enough that if you guys want to look into it and search all of this stuff, you can. But there is a lot of things to, I got them right away, Beth. I knew at some point something was going to get mucked up about it, and they were going to pull them back, or someone was going to complain, or some, judge would say no, or whatever it may be. I grabbed them right away, and I have everything. It is a lot to go through. But like what I do is I go, because I have all the data sets. If I'm thinking about something or I've heard about something, I can go to the DOJ website. I put in the search words, just like he's saying, and then I can go into my file, pull that out, and start extracting the data that I want to look at. So I've gotten back. I had them for a while. I had them on the back burner, and now I'm starting to get back into this again. And wanting to talk more about it. This interview is phenomenal, and I'm going to reach out to Eddy at some point here and see if he'll come on the channel, give me an hour of his time, and come over here and talk Epstein and let us know, what the hell's going on in New Mexico. Here we go.
It makes us seem completely insane. But let's not forget what this place is. I usually get people sort of like the entree. You go to a nice restaurant, you go to a Michelin restaurant, you start out, it's going through 9 courses, and you get started on something, they whet your palate and all that. And I said, you know what, let me help you out. Like your first courses, go binge the first season of True Detective. Do it.
Okay.
Go down the threads.
Well, there is plenty more to uncover in this story. Mr. Aragon, am I missing to ask you anything, any topic that you feel would be important to add?
No, I would just say, let's ask the rest of the media, and yourself included, why nobody was covering this back in 2019, and why the victims haven't been compensated, and why we continue to allow New Mexico to be the 3rd largest child trafficking place. I think our governor has a huge opportunity to leave a great legacy on behalf of the children and future generations for the growth of New Mexico, to make sure that the stain is removed. And, let's ask the people who are empowered, what are they going to do to make that commitment? We spend more per capita for education, for support. I think we have, subsidized child care, I want to say. I think we're the first state in the country to have that. I'm unfamiliar with what it is, but mandated child care. Well, if you want to talk about child care, take care and make sure that we aren't doing any child trafficking. Child trafficking,
I love that
is the biggest problem here in the state of New Mexico, and many people.
I love that statement. If we're going to give away free child care, let's make sure that our children are not being trafficked. What a great statement. What a great statement. I love that.
And what's really interesting, and I'll leave you with this. I think it's important for people to understand the origins of cryptocurrency. Go back and look at when it was open. Go back and look at who was involved. Go back and look at what drives cryptocurrency and the rates, and how that stuff is facilitated. Child trafficking can only be facilitated by people who possess cryptocurrency.
Well, Mr. Aragon, you've given me a lot to think about and a lot to research after we conclude this podcast. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the job that you do. Thanks for your newspaper, and thanks for having me on here on your podcast here today.
For sure. And again, my thanks to you. And as always, thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning into Around the Roundhouse. Join us every week as we talk to newsmakers in the political realm by subscribing to our podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or obviously wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest developments, including our ongoing coverage of the Jeffrey Epstein case, go to SantaFeNewMexican.com, where you can also subscribe to our political newsletter, The Roundhouse Report. Until next time, I'm Daniel Chacon, and this has been Around the Roundhouse.
Yeah, give them a follow around the Roundhouse on YouTube. You can find them over there. I agree with you. There needs to be more outrage about this. There needs to be more people watching this. There needs to be more eyes on this. There needs to be more people having conversations about what's inside those Epstein files, what is going on. We want transparency. We want justice for the victims and all of this. And we want people that are held accountable. We want people that are implicated in these files held accountable. I don't care. I don't care if you're, a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. I don't care if you're a political figure. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. I don't care if you're a former president of the United States. I don't care if you're a owner of a Fortune 500 company or the guy that mowed the fucking lawn. I wouldn't say at Zorro Ranch because you're not mowing lawns there, but at one of Jeffrey Epstein's house. I don't care. If you were involved in child sex trafficking, you're involved in raping young women, you're involved of taking any advantage of children, and you were involved with Jeffrey Epstein involved in those crimes, you need to be brought to justice. You need to be held accountable, and you need to go away for the rest of your life in whatever way our society plans to do that. So I want to thank everybody for tonight jumping in here on this edition of Let's Talk Live. I'm going to shut this one down for now, but please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment after this this segment post, and if you're watching on replay, please let me know and give it a thumbs up on the way out. I'll be back live probably either tomorrow night or Thursday night, and we're going to continue our coverage here of the Epstein files. Thank you all so much, my subscribers, my members, and my moderators for jumping in tonight. What a fantastic interview. And I'm going to reach out to Eddy and see if I can get him here on the channel to have a conversation about Zorro Ranch and the Epstein files. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.